in the spiritual world, helpful to learn from people who have already developed the skills that we're wanting to harness or garner within ourselves. We have our unique journey, and we have our own gifts that will come easier to us. There are a lot of people who might be drawn to gurus. It's not to say that's completely invalid. Gurus have been an important part of evolution for ages. There can be this propensity to feel like, oh, this person knows everything, so I'm going to do everything that they've done. I'm going to emulate whatever I see them wearing, eating, liking, behaviors that they have. We can lose ourselves. I feel that it actually works against us when we trying to fit ourselves into the square peg hole of anybody else. It's like taking what is valuable, how we can grow, but also honoring our preferences and our own journey and not losing ourselves, thinking that there's one path. This was the quickest path for this person, and that means that it will automatically be the quickest path for me.
Welcome everyone to the Soul Communication Podcast. Today in this episode, we're going to focus on miracles, authenticity, and just more about the awakening journey. And I'm really excited to have a guest here who is out in the world podcasting with many guests. Her podcast called Meditation Conversation. Kara Goodwin, the meditation guide, and has an amazing online summit that's called The Miracles. Welcome to Soul Communication.
Thanks, Deanna, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm really excited for you to be here and for me to come on your podcast later on in November. I love this exchange, and I feel there's so much to share with the world. You and I were just talking about how you have a book coming out soon on authentic awakening, and I'm writing a book. So where you are today, Kara, with everything you've been doing, what really excites your soul? Why are you so passionate about what you're doing?
I love that question. I feel really privileged to be able to work in accordance with my soul, in accordance with my spirit. And of course, I am really outwardly focused on spirituality with my podcast, which is Meditation Conversation. And we're having spiritual discussions, talking about energy and consciousness and so forth. But I feel like some people do have misconceptions around if we're doing spiritual work, it needs to be outward spiritual work where it's like we're wearing it on our sleeve. And there are so many people who are doing amazing work. It's like hidden 3D. They're not necessarily outwardly showing their spirituality, but they're showing up amongst the people, amongst everyday people, but they're writing this high vibration. They're looking at things from an expanded consciousness point of view, but they may be accountants. They may be doing people's hair. They may be driving a bus, but they're working with that high vibration. I really enjoy the type of work that I do, which is really focused intentionally on spirit. But I want people to be able to understand that even if they feel, oh, I'm in this 3D job, don't underestimate the impact that you're having with where you find yourself in time and space as your vocation, and the amazing work that is being done by so many people where they may not consider it spiritual work, but because they're doing their inner work, they are doing spiritual work, but it's just like this covert spiritual work. They may not even be tuning into the impact that they're having.
I feel like right now everyone is waking up, where maybe our podcasts are really helpful is for people to get validation and confirmation that their experiences are valid and There's truth to what's happening. They're not alone. They can just be driving in a car and tuning in, and their reality starts shifting. So, like that perceptual lens that we're able to bring through the speakers, through various ways we can categorize spirituality. I think some of these new labels that have been created in New Age community might be a little hyped up, but we can find spiritual moments grocery shopping and just smiling on the subway and making someone's day more bright. So, why did you decide to create this online summit called The Miracles? What is The Miracles all about?
I'm so excited about the Miracles Summit. It's going to happen on November 14th. Not only am I excited about the summit itself, but it's been this dance with the divine in terms of it even coming to being. So I'm going to have 9 incredible guest speakers, and Tony Ghazi is one of them, who is a mutual connection for both of us. But guests like Maureen St. Germain and Jamie Butler, Lori Williams, Hillis Pugh, Seth Dietland, Teresa Kaplan, Michael Massey, they all have this unique perspective. They're all very tapped in. We're going to focus on miracles. We're going to tell miracle stories. Everybody's going to have 20 minutes, and they'll share things in their life that have happened, that have just been these moments that have made them stop and be like, what is going on? This isn't possible. Something has
Yeah.
just happened that is not possible, and I've just experienced it. And then they're also going to give tips on how people can align themselves with the flow of miracles and the flow of the divine, because of course everything is moving through. When we're in that alignment, that's when we're setting ourselves up for more possibilities to come in. What's been really exciting for me personally with this has been the connection with the divine. This is something that I'm always working on, and I feel like connection with source, with God, with the universe, to me, and I didn't come up with this analogy, but it resonates so strongly with me. It's how our planet revolves around the sun, and it's actually an ellipse. It's not a sphere. It's not like perfectly round. It's elliptical, meaning it's narrower than a perfectly round sphere. And because of that, sometimes we're closer to the sun and sometimes we're further away from the sun. We're not always equidistant to the sun from an Earth standpoint. And that to me is like how I feel. Sometimes I'm closer to source, and sometimes it's not like I'm not there. It's not like the sun's never there, but sometimes I'm further away. Or we can think about this too in the tilt of the Earth's axis and then how the seasons move. In winter, the sun feels further away, it feels less warm. And then in the summer, if you live where we live, which is you do get the seasons, but sometimes it's the sun is right there full on and you can't get away from it. I've just come back from vacation last week, and I noticed while during my vacation, there were opportunities for me to be connected and to remember divinity and to think of myself as a spirit being. But I also was with my family. We were focused on vacation time, and I was out of my grid. I was out of my element. And I just noticed that I didn't feel as connected. And when I came back, I got a stomach bug. And again, I was just like laid out for a day. And again, just not really feeling in the flow as much, just knowing that spirit was still there, that I'm still a spiritual being, but it just wasn't front and center for a while, missing that connection. And then I had this amazing meditation on Wednesday, and I was like, oh, I feel like dialed back in. I was back in my grid, in my home, and really felt some things anchor back in. And so for me, it's something that we're dynamic beings. And so sometimes we feel stronger connection, and sometimes it just feels not so strong, a little bit weaker. And I just love really feeling that blessing of being really tapped in. And the creation of this summit has been a fun experience of that, where one day, and it's come about very quickly too, because I think that this was in early September, and I was just sitting at my kitchen table, and I was actually having work done on my house. So there were like workers coming and going, things banging around everywhere above me. And the idea of this summit came through, and it was like, I want to get my friends together, and I had this slumber party feel. It was like, I want to have this slumber party, but I put that in quotes because I was like people all spread out and everything. And it was like, I want people who are close to my heart, who we can just open up the lines of communication, share these high vibrational stories, and I could see and feel this energy vortex that would open up and be created from this heart to heart connection, where we're bringing to mind and sharing these high vibrational times in our lives where we felt super connected. And when we share these stories, it ignites that connection within whoever is a part of that. So I was just feeling this sense. Again, I kept getting this slumber party. Let's just get a bunch of people together and let's just share these amazing, remarkable moments that we've had in our lives. And it like triggers and ignites within anybody who's tuning in their own remembrance of those times within their lives, and opens up those possibilities energetically of activating that to happen in real time, to happen in the future. It taps us in, but it was just this, oh, we all awaken, open up our nodal points, because it's one big geometry. And it's like everybody who's a part of it opens up and becomes a nodal point, a connector point. And it just came in, and we would call that a download. I just don't really, I don't really operate where I get downloads frequently. So I'm sure that you have people listening who are like, yeah, it's a download. For me, it was just really, oh my God, I just saw it so clearly all of a sudden. I saw it clearly, but also like I saw the geometric aspect of it. I saw the intentionality, the openness of the energy and how it ignites, but I didn't see all of the details, because it was like, who would be involved? And when would this be? And how would I do it? Because I haven't done a summit before. And can I do this? Would I have time to do it? All those questions. There were just all these like unknowns also, but also the clarity of this thing, this idea, this creative endeavor that was just, here it is. Somebody should do this. And it was like, maybe I can do that. Can I do that? I think I can. And then very like over the next few days, it just more and more details as I would tune into that, like the geometric aspect, the intentionality of it, more pieces, like different people to invite in. And I could feel whether it was the right person to invite, or if it wasn't quite, didn't quite have the right, like we didn't have the right level of, not even level of connection, but I just didn't know them well enough. It was, all of these kind of intangible things. There was just again, I know you will understand. I know that your guests will understand, but it was just this, oh yeah, okay, that kind of clicks in.
Don't
Even
you
the
love when it clicks
timing.
in? Like in that
Yeah,
moment, it's just flowing. I feel like that's part of that whole creation process. All the pieces come together like a beautiful
right.
mandala. Because you have such a beautiful toroidal mandala in the background there. So it just made me
Oh
think
yeah.
of these concentric circles that are all coming back together in the center. That seed I'm going to plant, and it's just going to
Yeah.
unfold in a beautiful way.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been really fantastic. Just as I've gone on, all those details coming into play. And then also, I just keep feeling like, okay, there's another one that will happen in a few months. We'll do this one. I'm not focused on the other one, but I keep getting connected with people where I'm like, oh my God, I really hope that they'll be a part of the next one. That was our conversation before we even started, where I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
Deanna will be amazing to have in the next one. And I don't even know the next one, I don't think would be around, there'd be a different theme, not miracles. But you're probably like the fourth person where I'm like, okay, make a note because this is the right person for the next one. Those are those click moments where it's, okay, this is the right person.
Or sometimes I call them the aha moments. They just
Yeah.
feel so good. And I'm sure those who are listening to us, they're like, oh, yeah, I know that moment. It's just so crystal clear. And
Mhm.
when you hit that moment, I also call them breadcrumbs. Like a
Yeah.
whole new picture opens up, right? And
Yes.
you follow that breadcrumb. And from
Yeah.
there, like another one opens up. I feel that's like nature of our reality. It's very holographic, but it's still like a Sherlock Holmes type of discovery model where we have
Yeah.
to still take that yellow brick road to figure out who's our next friend and feel that resonance in the moment.
Yes, and I love the availability of that and how the more aligned we are, the more we can tune into that clicking feeling, the aha moments, because they're there for all of us. That's been something that along the years of my path, I have understood more and more. Whereas I used to feel like you're in or you're out, and I was out. Where it was like, oh, all these people like Deanna's so tapped in. She knows and she can connect. And I can't do that. I don't have that within me because I don't have those same abilities. And it's been this evolution over time where it's like, oh, this really is for everybody. Everybody can, but we're just not all doing it. We're not developing it. We're not noticing it. We're not accessing it. And it's interesting how, as we become more sensitive to those breadcrumbs, to those aha moments, how it doesn't feel like this new thing. At least in my experience, it hasn't been this like, oh my gosh, there's a light switch where I wasn't able to do this and now I can. It's so subtle that it's like, oh, there's this feeling of like it clicks in and you can tune into it, notice it, become more sensitive to it. But it's, oh my gosh, this has been here the whole time and I haven't been noticing it or giving it worth.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of words that are coming for me: awareness, right? And trust. So
Yeah.
it's like the awareness of the awareness, because as our aperture is opening up, it's wider. So it's a larger net. And back to your beautiful seed of life in the background, it's now there's like more circles opening up, the flowers blooming because we're aware. And then I'm just bee pollinated. It
Ah,
is has a bigger territory now to play at. And then the trust aspect of it is key here, because even though we've been telling ourselves these very narrow belief stories, what we can do, cannot do, I build them too. We all have. It's this unpeeling are we doing? Oh, this is all I can do. I wasn't born with it. And now I laugh because what I thought 8 years ago was possible, now I'm just constantly in the miracle zone. We're like, whoa, this is happening too. I didn't know I could do that. But also trusting that it's okay not to know in this moment. And it's trusting that your journey, your process, wherever you are, is just perfect. There's no judgment around creation. There's no judgment and around what's right or wrong. The only critic is ourselves. And the minute
yeah.
we let go and the minute we let it flow, let the right person come my way, let the right project download come through, and it just happens. And then you're like, okay, I'm trusting this. And now
Yeah.
I'm just following the flow.
Yes, I love that. And the ability to tune into that guidance as well. There are a couple of sort of, they're not make or break things, but things that I would like guidance on that I need by the end of the week. I have a deadline where I'm like, okay, I was doing this in meditation today where it was just like, I am sending out this request to please help me to get the best recommendation for me for these two areas of life. And I'll stay alert while also releasing my expectations. It's such a dance of without overthinking every recommendation that I might get or what have you. That remembering that we have those resources on the other side and that we've got this internal guidance system and utilizing it and being intentional about it when there are things that we could have many options, but it's helped me tune into the highest one, the best one, and then trusting, like you say, trusting
Yeah.
the guidance that comes.
So your podcast called Meditation Conversation. What tools are you using to get that guidance, that recommendation? Is meditation one of them? Any other ones that you feel are really helpful in tuning in and really listening?
Yeah. Meditation is my go-to. That's really where I feel the strongest, I guess where I feel it's the easiest to connect. But I actually do challenge myself to try to connect throughout the day as well because it can be easy. And a lot of it just depends on how busy things are, how many things are getting thrown at me, how I feel. But it can be really easy to go hours and be so like in the minutia of life that I really am not even considering the spiritual aspect that I have all this help on the other side who can advise me, who can there are times where I will wake up it from my sleep, wake up in the morning and have to quickly get a lot of things done and not really have sometimes I'll do my meditation a little bit later and I'll get so far into my day and it'll be this remembrance that comes in. Oh my God, I am more than all these to do things that I'm focused because it's like from the minute my feet hit the ground, I'm like, go and I'm mentally doing all of the things already and trying to plan things out and so forth. And this happens frequently where there's just this dawning this remembrance of, "Oh my god, yeah. This is all just like a game," or whatever, however we wanna look at it. It's like this stuff that I'm, like, so focused on isn't even the reality, but I didn't even take a moment to remember today, like, who I really am. And then it's just this, "Oh, yeah. I'm so much bigger than this and so much more expanded than these to-dos that I'm so focused on." So it's that challenge for me to not only connect in meditation, which is an easier thing for me to do, but to keep stoking that flame as the day goes on.
And with meditation, I know some people have really hard time dropping in, especially if we're already busy. Are there any techniques you use in to help you drop in and just tune out the noise and go right inward?
The breath I find is super key for so many reasons. There are physiological reasons that the breath is so important, but it also works with our mind. It can be a focal point so that we have one thing that we're focused on rather than our energy, our focus being so diffused on many things at once, ping ponging around from one incomplete thought to another. The breath can really give us like draw our energy into one thing, and that helps to strengthen our energy and our focus. But you're right. Some people, it's really difficult for them to just sit there and try to meditate, try to make time for meditation. For those people, I think a good starting point is to try a walking meditation, or if they have some sort of more monotonous regime where, like a running practice or a swimming practice, turning off the music, trying to focus on one thing, focus the breath is a good one, but each inhale and exhale as they're moving their body. And that can be something that you utilize for a little while. And then at the end of your practice, you're running or you're swimming or whatever, I would encourage just taking a few minutes to be still and to see, okay, has that cleared out enough that you have a new focus, a new, like you're just clearer and you can sit for a few minutes and just be in that stillness, in that energy that you've brought in. That can be a great way to start. I feel that there is a graduation process, like a gradual graduation process where if you stick with it, if you prioritize it and get some discipline in there and you utilize your strengths in a productive way, you can get to the point where you can sit and but one thing too, I feel like people bite off more than they can chew. So they get this, "Oh, I wanna meditate, I wanna tap in, I wanna connect. So if I do it for 3 minutes, 30 minutes must be better, and I'm just gonna go for it." And so they aren't very realistic in terms of they wanna find this big chunk of time, and then they expect that they're gonna be able to keep their body still, their mind still, and it's one of those things that it just does take practice. I would say start with 3 minutes, start with 5 minutes, and do that for a little while, get used to that where it's more manageable. 5 minutes can feel very long if you're not used to stilling your mind and your body. So don't feel like more is better. Get used to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and then just do one, add a minute or 30 seconds or something once you're used to that. Don't even go from 5 to 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Really get used to 5 minutes, get comfortable there. And when you feel ready, add 30 seconds or add a minute. I also feel that guided meditations can really help rather than just sitting there and trying not to think, allowing somebody that you trust to help you move through the stages of meditation. That can just let you shift into a different brainwave state than just trying to dictate it yourself.
I completely agree with you. I feel, especially those who are just starting guided meditation, really good way to start. I do a lot of hypnosis work and I see those who, of course, meditate more, they drop into brainwave theta deeper because they
Mhm.
can just surrender, let go. So I think a lot of it has to do with surrender. What you were talking about, the gradual process, I feel is like training the controller to just
Yeah.
let go and just be and learning how to be. It's an acquired skill. We in this society are always on the go, right? Like you have a list, you're like taking care of your kid, you're taking care of everyone. So you're always running lists, but finding that time to just be with yourself is something we all have to prioritize and train and create that presence within our day. And it takes, I feel, years. I know you've been on a journey for a while. I've been too. And I feel now it's so much easier because we can
Yeah.
just shift into it. But it took that type of going to the gym and lifting spiritual weights of sorts to be like, okay, I can just switch the gears.
Exactly. I love that. It's such a great way to say it is the spiritual gym.
For
Knowing
me, it
that
is a spiritual gym. When I go to the
yeah.
gym, my favorite place is actually the sauna. This is where
Yeah.
I actually do my meditations, like 20
Mhm.
minutes of sauna. Some people feel like, oh, 20 minutes is a long time. That's stillness for me there. It like forces you to be still. So you can combine. You can find a gym and a spiritual gym wherever you are.
I love that. Yes, and the parallel between the 2 of you don't go to a gym and lift 300 pounds right away, and it's the same, like, we wanna be patient with ourselves and realistic and set ourselves up for success. The must we have within our brain, for example, the ability to focus, like you were saying that it's an ability that we can develop, but it takes time, just like learning to play the piano or lifting weights or whatever. It's bit by bit, and a lot of times we just have this expectation that because it's a mental process, there's so much of a mental aspect. We're not really doing anything with our bodies that we should just be able to do it on demand. And it's there for us. It is there for everybody, but it takes that dedication, that discipline, and practice.
Practice promotes presence. The word expectations that you just mentioned on the spiritual journey in general, some people build these expectations of what this journey needs to be or how it should be, or they compare to someone else. Anytime you do that, just remember it's again your ego flaring up. You can't control how it should be versus just allowance and being more with the spirit, with the divine will. So finding that balance, that dance between the two is so important. You're not here racing to the finish line. I think we need to recognize we all mirrors of each other. We co-creating together and each one of us is like helping each other.
Yeah, in terms of the competition, the expectations, all of that is so valid. There are a lot of trailblazers, and in the spiritual world, they're forging their path and they're helping other people. They're finding what worked for them and they're sharing. And there's so much value in that. And it's so helpful to learn from people who have already developed the skills that we're wanting to harness or garner within ourselves. we have our unique journey. And just to echo what you were saying, we have our own gifts that will come easier to us, and we aren't going to be doing it exactly the same as other people. There are a lot of people who might be drawn to gurus. It's not to say that's completely invalid. Gurus have been an important part of evolution for ages. There can be this propensity to feel like, oh, this person knows everything. They know exactly the right thing for me. The way that they've done it, they've gotten to the level that I want to get to. So I'm going to do everything that they've done. I'm going to emulate whatever I see them wearing, eating, liking, behaviors that they have. And so it's this allowing ourselves to be taught, to be guided, and also honoring our uniqueness and not just going, oh, I'm going to step into this paper doll cutout that somebody else has cut out and I'm going to make it fit. And I know that in my journey, I've had iterations of that where I followed leaders and lost myself. I figured whatever it was that what I naturally liked, what I naturally was drawn to, that didn't matter. What mattered was what this leader liked, what this leader recommended, what this leader said to do. We can lose ourselves. I feel that it actually works against us when we start trying to fit ourselves into the square peg hole of anybody else. So again, it's like taking what is valuable, taking how we can grow, but also honoring our preferences and our own journey and not losing ourselves thinking that there's one path. This was the quickest path for this person, and that means that it will automatically be the quickest path for me.
I'm so happy you're bringing up this topic. I literally was just talking with my husband about it yesterday. I've been on this journey for a while, and I've been also observing that trend. There is that propensity for many to do so. And I always say the age of the guru is over. That
Mhm.
maybe served us as evolution of consciousness in the past, emulating and helping and seeing someone on a pedestal maybe got us to a certain level. But in the journey of doing so, we also have power because we're giving our power away to that person by worshiping them in some ways. We're connected to different frequencies and deities, but that's different. That's just knowing that they're there versus putting this person on a pedestal and saying, this is
Mhm.
it. In my own journey, actually, I found myself being more disappointed with teachers over the course of time and also respectful and honoring and very grateful that they brought me to a certain level, but also seeing kind of the shadow aspect of them. That's when I moved on. I always say, I'm here co-creator with you. I'm your facilitator. I'm never your teacher. I'm never really your guru. You are the guru. You already
Mhm.
know everything. We all do. We just forgot. And so we in this multidimensional amnesia, that's my terminology for it, where we just re-remembering in each of us. It's just holding hands and leading ourselves home of remembrance. So, with that said, we are perfect, right? And back to the abilities, like we have all the abilities. We're just remembering how to reactivate them, how to open them up, how to tune into them, how to train that muscle. But we have to be really careful about given all our power to that one person or couple of people, and they can still be in resonance. You can still follow them because you will be collecting wisdom and information. Like your podcast, people like my podcast, they like us because there's something that we have that we share in. There's also codes and exchanges, but that's different than us saying, listen, we have all the information. I don't think anyone does. And I think anyone who even tries to say they do, that's distorted. So
Mm.
for me, distortion is really a big thing that I look out for. And it's like a careful dance with that. There are a lot of influencers, and I'm also noticing some of these influencers are really good at faking it. So that's another one where you're trying not to judge, but that is happening too.
Yes, absolutely. I love what you share with the disillusionment. I've been there too. I've seen a lot of different sides to it where I've had experiences where it was like, oh, these people are actually not who they say they are. They're grifters, they're misrepresenting themselves, but they're using spiritual truths to do it. And they're gaslighting, they're twisting things where the truth we do, our external, is a reflection of the internal. But twisting that to say, oh, if you're going to see what I'm doing as grifting, for example, then that's actually a reflection of you. You're seeing what I'm doing. It's actually, no, you're lying and you're plagiarizing and you're misrepresenting yourself. There's also just the pedestal aspect of putting people who are further along, who do have certain gifts, and then the choice of mine to put them on a pedestal and expect them to be higher than human temptation or things like that, feeling that there's this discord. If they get angry, for example, that's not what I would expect. Then they fall off their pedestal. So some of that is within me of my own expectations of, oh, I think that this person should be above all of this. And they're maybe still having their own human journey. But I feel that most of the time, and I'm looking at a lot of these from the outside, but again, have a couple of experiences of being more on the inside, where there is such an abuse of power, people attaining a certain level of spiritual experience, mystical experience, or whatever, latching onto that, claiming that they are something that they're not, getting followers, and then being really abusive. And unfortunately, that is rampant. It feels very rampant right now. And a lot of times you don't know that's happening until you get deep enough into it. It's like on the surface, you're not going to see that. You take a few classes or you go to a retreat or whatever it might be, and you're just seeing this amazing. And it's not until you get like deeper and deeper in. And by then you're like really latched in. You've got a different colored glasses on where you see the leader in the organization in a certain way, that you're giving them the benefit of the doubt when they're really taking advantage of people. We all need to keep our eyes open and stay in our power.
Stay in our power, stay in our sovereignty, always remembering we are the gurus, right? So we are the most
Mm,
powerful. We have everything. It's just that society, since we were little kids, shutting it down for us. And that's how this matrix reality is created, is actually to disempower us. I totally agree. I don't want to give a name, but just recently read an article about someone actually from a breathwork world,
okay.
someone you and I probably followed. The actual teachings can be applicable, but then the person hasn't been living his life according to what they preach. So, and you were just mentioning abuse. This is what I just read. It was like the closest people that were abused. I think the power can corrupt for sure.
Yeah.
And I think the power has corrupted. We can see this in politics. We can see it everywhere in all levels of society. The power corrupted galactically too. If we go beyond Earth and just look at how we ended up on Earth and why this project has started. So I think we repeat in those cycles though until we break them. I'm seeing that between empath and narcissists, that type of relationships. Those on the spiritual journey often are more empathic, and then they allow the narcissists who know how to navigate, and you mentioned gaslight, to do that to them. So we all have to understand that we're learning how to integrate that. And that
Mm,
comes through the traumas that we've collected on the soul level from different lifetimes. I think we need to come to a place of recognition that this is happening, and it's up to us to stop it. If we are talking about authentic awakening, we have to be true to ourselves. What are we really
right.
doing? And why are we
Absolutely.
calling someone a guru? Actually, in today's world, calling someone a guru triggers me because I feel we have to be selective even about the words that we use.
I am with you 100%. Yeah, I feel the same. I've had people on my podcast who I didn't realize were in that mentality. I try to be careful about who I have on because they've got an agenda to bring people to a guru, to an organization. I don't want to facilitate that.
That disconnect is also because we live like through Christianity and other forms of religion where there was always, even in Judaism, really, there was always a rabbi, there was always a priest, there's always like that other intermediary. And so we're so used to having that someone else,
An
that
authority.
an
Yeah.
authority of sorts. And maybe it's like a human psyche where we used to follow, be external into that connection with the spirit versus internal. And
Yeah.
how can we cultivate that internal connection and realize we don't need anyone? We don't need an intermediary, just you yourself and your heart and your spirit and your higher self.
I agree. And I do think that people are teaching things that are valuable. So for myself, there are gifts that I want to open more. One of those things that I was talking about that I was this morning in meditation helped me to guide me in the right way because
Mhm.
I have my eye on a couple of courses and I want to be guided to the right instructor because I do feel that I could navigate my way eventually to it inwardly, but I feel that there are people who have already come before me who have like practical tips and they've tested their methods and it would just be quicker to step into what have they already discovered instead of trying to discover it within myself, which is valid. It just, we can get help and speed ourselves along. Just like if we have a personal trainer, going back to the gym analogy, it's like I could mess around on some machines with no instruction. But then if I got somebody who was like, hey, I've done this a million times, let me just show you how to use this stuff, it could be faster and more effective. But it's that always coming back to that empowerment piece of, okay, they have pieces of the puzzle for me and they can help me to take things deeper. And I don't need to put them on a pedestal. They don't have all the answers for everything in my life. And I'm going to still know like where my boundaries are and be, what's the word I'm looking for? Be like specific. That's not the word. Be intentional. Be
Intentional,
intentional
yeah.
about the information that I want to get because you can easily get sucked in. It's a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is a balance. Everything is about resonance too, right? Certain instructors you get called to, and I think you have to follow that. You have to follow
Mm.
the resonance because that person can share. Like people who come to my workshops, I have a lot to share, but also like experiences for them that they might not be able to find it outside of the room. I activate people's Kundalini. It will be very hard for them to have that experience of Kundalini awakening on their own. There's actually something I can do for them as energy healer that they might not be able to get on their own because they might not even be able to see that certain thing that's blocking the energy flow. So it's always good to work with someone. That's why I always honor my teachers, and then like having my husband as my divine partner, being in partnership with someone who can be a mirror is so helpful. Just follow your resonance, follow what feels you want to uncover, but always know that you have everything. It's just, you just rediscovering them.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Thank you so much, Kara, for coming on. You mentioned in the Miracles Online Summit, where can someone sign up? What's the best way to connect to you and also listen to your podcast?
Thank you so much, Deanna, for having me. I've loved this conversation. Your listeners can go to karagoodwin.com. So it's KaraGodwin. And you can get to the Miracles Summit there. I host live streams every few weeks as well. Those are free. You can register for those. The podcast they can get to through themeditationconversation.com. And I have 300, I think I'm in the 370s now. So there's a ton of content out there. And I'm on Instagram at Kara_Goodwin_meditation. I'm pretty easy to find. If you go to karagoodwin.com, it should direct you wherever you want to go.
Look for Kara's work and her upcoming online summit. Sign up. And Kara, what are your last parting words with us?
I love our conversation. There have been a couple of themes. The empowerment piece, I really want listeners to feel into that because sometimes we have these blind spots within us. So we may be able to hear my experience or your experience and to be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then not apply that back to ourselves because we don't want to see how we're disempowering ourselves. It's hard for us to face that truth. So I would just encourage people to be courageous and really be authentic with looking at themselves, and if there might be some boundaries that they need to put in their spiritual lives as well. And then also that connection, that interconnection that we all have within us. We all have the ability to keep stoking that flame, to strengthen that connection. It takes dedication, it takes a devotion, but it's there for us. And I feel that it's really hard to live a purposeful life without nurturing that connection.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you,
Thank
everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. For more information, please visit the website tianadivine.com. We are offering different programs, workshops, retreats, as well as one-on-one work such as quantum healing hypnosis, crystalline soul healing, and more on sourcelanguage.org, offering a digitized course. It's self-paced, where you can open up to your divine gift of light language. I'm MaAra Divine, and keep connecting with your higher self